two, one, boost ignition, and liftoff, and all systems are go.
Welcome to the Lesbo and the Bean universe. Lesbo and the Bean. LaTB, LaTB, where mixed martial arts and the UFC get silly. Big silly. Buckle up and move your tray tables to their upright position. And please, somebody shut that baby up. It's time for Lesbo and the Bean.
Welcome back, episode 179. We got a Plan B ahead of us. It was a pay-per-view. And what a pay-per-view we had.
B.
Is that not what we have here? The morning after?
Yeah.
Another morning
so political,
after.
you know how we do.
It's the afternoon, so we waited. It wasn't just the morning after. We already had to go to the pharmacy and buy that Plan B. Take care of last night.
Last night was ugly. Last night was
Was
where
it?
you woke up and you were like sliding out from under the arm of a person. And you were like, you didn't even put your shoes on when you walked out. You left your drawers inside. You were like, whatever, free panties for the stranger.
Those
Taking
$3
free panties.
Those $3 Long Island iced teas weren't a good idea at the end of the night.
Yeah, it was ugly. And you knew it ahead of time. You knew it ahead of time. You were sitting at the bar, taking a free drink, looking over at the MFer sending him to you, thinking, is that scabies on his face? And you were like, nah, it's fine. Let's just move on. You knew better before you even took a sip of the first drink. And look how it ended up. Bill Cosby. You were Bill Cosby.
So if you're listening to Lab B, you're making money, because I don't know how you fans didn't follow along. Here at Lab B, one of the rarest things we've ever done on the show, we agreed on pretty much every single fight, even the ones that fell out. If you've been living under a rock, you didn't hear Robert Whittaker fell out within 12 hours before the main event. Post weigh-in, Whittaker looked good, had a little bit of abdominal strain, went into the doctor and they're like, you got an impacted turnt up gut. You gonna get sick, buddy. You get a punch or a knee to the gut, it's gonna give you septic because your poop's gonna fall out of your belly. So really good thing that they caught that, because that's really
hernia, twisted gut, tied in knot bowels. Like he had
he was
everything
gonna get
going
ringworm
on.
and staph in the fight too.
Is he? You told me stories of other guys, and that was going to happen.
He was
Lower
gonna
his
get
immune
ringworm and
system.
staph.
That was
There
gonna
was no
happen.
way. Gastelum's pictures were some of the funnest things at the weigh-ins. Like, everybody went crazy. Gastelum found out on Wednesday that everyone could tell he had a ringworm on his face. And then he started covering it up with the most disgusting bandage I've ever seen in my life.
They look just like, this is hashtag no racist. I think it's a real thing that exists. And if it doesn't exist, god damn it, where are we? I just thought it was black person Band-Aids. And instead of just being white person Band-Aids, it was black person Band-Aids on it. And so he had one across this way and one across this way. And it almost was the exact same color as his Mexican-American beard.
Agreed. It was so But
weird.
it looked Leatherfacey to me. I'm like, do you get back plastic surgery? What's going on? Then I'm like,
But the one
it's
on
the
his
ringworm.
neck disappeared.
Well, I think
The one
that
at the
was
presser.
staph. I think that one was impetigo. I think that's what impetigo does, and then he scraped it for the next pictures the next day, and it was just a scab. But when he didn't scrape it there, that was full of pus. Blah! Gonna septic. Kelvin Gastelum was ready to fight night. I mean, he had ringworm, sunburn, and impetigo. Made weight. What else could you ask from him? That's like this guy doing everything right.
Are you saying that you're like, this guy did everything right, he should be able to walk around with a belt?
He should be a champion in my eyes, and I totally agree. He should be walking around with a belt.
Really?
No way! That's the most garbage thing
I
I've
was
ever
about to
seen.
fall on the floor.
Kelvin Gastelum is turning immediate heel with
Yeah.
this entire situation.
Yeah, so if you don't know, I know, I don't... If you have been living under a rock and for whatever reason you didn't see the fight, you said, what?
Kelvin's got Ali Abdelaziz in his corner.
Which is strong enough. It's strong enough.
Sabotaging the studio.
I don't even know where to go with that. That threw me off.
So you were saying
With
the belt, with Kelvin Gastelum, he ended up borrowing Henry Cejudo, who was in town's belt.
Oh, yes, his championship belt. So you knew it was one of the newer belts, and some people were like, oh my gosh,
UFC
did the
gave him the
UFC
belt.
strip Robert Whittaker and give... He's like, I did everything right. And it just didn't seem like a characteristic Kelvin thing to do. And the other thing that I thought was funny is, remember and you're the one who I feel like even Kelvin's name, Kelvin's Kelvin. It's not Kevin. You're the one who taught me that.
True.
And I just corrected you on the last podcast.
Yes.
But then it was really funny listening to every single announcer call him Kevin.
I heard everyone else do it as well.
It made me laugh. Like, this is the fight that everyone forgets his name. Like, no one ever has before. It's always been Kelvin. It made me laugh.
So what else made you laugh was the belt. Henry, even Dana White in the post-fight presser, which we're jumping ahead a bit, was confirmed to everyone saying, oh, he borrowed that from his cohort, Henry Cejudo, which shares a management deal or a promoter with Ali Abdelaziz.
And there was pictures of Henry and Kelvin and Kamaru Usman. They were all taking pictures together, all under that Ali Abdelaziz management. We should call that double A. That might be the strongest force. It might be bigger than a camp. It might be bigger than, like that double A management might be the thing that really is getting you title fights these days. Take it for what it is.
You have a good point.
You got that double A.
So we didn't get the main event. The pay-per-view was a little bit weak, and it really took a hit as soon as Robert Whittaker ended up falling off. DraftKings lines had to be adjusted. I mean, these were some funky-ass cards. There was a fighter on DraftKings who only scored 36 points in a loss, and he was on all of the top cards that I saw. But there was a lot of ties for first place throughout the night because of a 5-rounder falling out. They turned Adesanya Anderson Silva 3-rounder into the main event, still kept it a pay-per-view. How big of a loss was this? I was out there championing that they turned this into a $20 pay-per-view, most sold pay-per-view of all time.
It's so odd to me, and the fact that they skipped 233 means that they're just like a future scientific, like, trudging wheel that's just digging up the earth underneath it. It doesn't matter. It's moving forward. Sometimes it might lose some teeth. Sometimes it might be broken in parts, but it's just trudging forward. It is like that TV show Gold Diggers or Gold Rush.
Right.
Yeah,
right,
it's just
right,
tearing
right,
up the earth. It doesn't give a fuck. And
It's
that's
gonna
what I
keep
feel
moving
like
forward.
the UFC, the new, especially under the new WME, it doesn't give a shit. It's like, whatever's behind us, we're just moving forward. We're not even gonna, we're not
Acknowledge
ever
that,
gonna even
right.
talk about any of that shit. Even down to the ugly Kevin Hardy, like, that's been this year.
Right,
Yeah, like,
already?
they don't even give a shit. Trudging forward.
Yep.
It's like,
he got
ugh.
disqualified. What? He's got 3 more fights. Like, they don't give a shit.
Hyak pooey. They're not
Totally
giving any
agree.
credence. And right now, the conspiracy mind in me can't figure out if the UFC's playing ball with Ali, because I see that all his people obviously have the belts and they're getting the matchups, or if he's somehow using the Khabib fight with Conor as leverage to get all his other guys plays, to be like, to get more security with other belts and to spread that Khabib power while he has it, and realizes that, like, he's delaying the efforts instead of locking in the title, because immediately once that stone is popped, he loses that Conor McGregor leverage.
100%.
That's just the conspiracy head in me.
So, with the Conor conspiracy, have you heard Donald Cerrone, Conor McGregor, are going to be fighting for the interim championship of the world at 155 pounds? Officially, Cowboy Cerrone has leaked that information. How valid do you feel like that statement is?
I believe they both could have contracts signed. I believe that shit could be real. The fact of an interim championship meaning anything, of getting a championship fight, I don't believe that means anything. And I do hope, for whatever reason, Dana White keeps pushing every time I hear him in any kind of presser, Tony's the one that deserves that fight. Tony's the one that deserves that fight. And that, it's rare I agree with Dana all the way through. I totally agree there. I believe he's the one that deserves that fight. But I'm wondering why he's ricocheting
But this is also UFC 101. Never trust Dana White.
Never trust Dana White.
So as soon as he says that guy deserves a belt, it means boom, 65. That's on the way.
Somehow that's our new. You know how we like to change up our intros and shit at Lesbo and the Bean. That the Lesbo and the Bean rules should somehow be the like lyrics of the new show where it's like. Never pick the first fight of the night and never trust Dana White.
Damn.
Like it could somehow, we could work it out.
That was deep. That was some deep ass lyrics. I like it.
Throw in some like something about elevation.
Damn.
Yeah.
Throwing the Illuminati signs up so early in your music career. Woo!
Is it early though? We are closing on episode 200.
Aren't we? Aren't we? How quickly it's all come about. But if you've been sticking with us for a while, you know that here we like to make money. And this was one of those nights that, with all the shenanigans that happened either way, we ended up cashing out because 10 out of 11 fights, I don't care who you are, that's good odds. I don't care who you are, you're making money. I cashed some parlays that were over 5 people deep. I don't recommend that for fans, that's why I don't tell people about it. But it was mainly favorites. That was the night, how we saw the night playing out. But we should start all the way from the bottom, get all the way to the top. And it started out with 135-pounders, Ouija Buren versus Jonathan Martinez.
So we learned that we rarely ever agree, but usually when we do, that's got to be like... One day we're going to have a math nerd fan that's going to take all our shows and put it into numbers and have the when we agree percentage, and that's going to be high as fuck.
And we usually tell fans when we say, ooh, submission round 2 or knockout round 3, when we both agree in that sense, we'll put a stinky prop in there just because it does work out when we both see a lot of the same things happening. So again, at 35, Martinez just overwhelmed Buren. Buren's on a 3-fight losing streak now. Feel like at 135, there's enough people there that he'll probably end up getting on out of here. Not one of the few Chinese guys, or one of the few Chinese guys that isn't a star. I guess there's a lot more that aren't than are. So he's gonna, on the local scene, if he goes back to the Asian circuit, he's gonna start to get a couple wins. He's still a young man. He'll come. I can see him back in the UFC. Because he has everything he needs. He just needs the experience.
Agreed. Short notice, that part of the world. We could see him as a co-main event of a pay-per-view.
Woo! Potentially. But Martinez here ended up just out-wrestling him, out-grinding him on the ground. Striking actually put together some good combinations, hurt him at points and times. 135, Martinez is going to be a solid fighter. He's going to be a sneaky underdog in spots because he's a grinder and he showed it in there. I like Martinez moving forward. He's not making a title contention right now, but he's looking at that top 15 spot. I think he can start to get in there in a 2 or 3 more fights. How did you feel this one ended up?
Same thing. Nothing worth really talking about now as far as matchmaking, but he was first fight of the night, but it was exciting enough. I thought all the 101 basics were there for him, and he controlled a lot of the fight, so I like everything I saw from him.
Totally. Then we move on to the 55ers, where we had Jalen Turner coming in against the loss to Luque at 170 pounds. Finally made weight at 155 pounds against debuting Callan Potter, one of the locals who was put on the card. Here the being read it is, this guy looks kind of old. He kind of looks like he's a little bit slow. He is a grinder and likes to eat a lot of shots, but I think Jalen's going to end up getting him out of there probably in the second round. I was giving that toughness a little more credit than it should have because this guy looked all bit of 45 years old. He's only 34, but to me, he just looked like he'd been in battles on the local scenes, and those caught up to him before the UFC.
He looked like he'd been in battles in the gangs in New York.
True, he was hanging out with the Caprio.
Yeah, the butcher.
Yeah, he didn't look good. I don't think, moving forward, I'm going to bet it against Potter again in a lot of spots.
Agree, but you know the nervous part about this? Everybody, remember this going forward. Don't yet jump and be like, Jalen Turner's a fucking superstar. Because this guy is everything that you're saying.
Totally
he is
agree.
local talent, and that isn't anything in a bad way. He's better than everybody he went to high school with. But this UFC, I love the DC. There's levels to this game.
And the truth.
And before any fighters give me hate, boo! I don't have to fight to say that.
It's unfortunate. That's just the way the cookie crumbles, and that's why you're the UFC fighters. Because you're the elite of the elite.
You say whether or not you like that movie, and you don't have to direct or act to say that.
True. To break it down, you don't have to act or direct
Whether
it.
or not you want to respect my opinion, that's another issue, and I really just want to make you laugh more than you respect my opinion about anything. Maybe one day you'll be like, oh, sometimes this bitch is right on things. Sometimes this bitch is right.
So, moving forward, just Turner's gonna look good, but again, he's gonna probably be ultra hyped and be like a 6-1 in the next fight, where a good wrestler is gonna end up scaring me against Turner. So I gotta remember that moving forward. Then we go back to the 135 pounders, where he had Kyu-Ho Kang defeating Terento Ishihara via submission, round number 1. This was a gunfight for the first 3 minutes. I mean, these guys were landing bombs on each other. It was one of the funnest 2 minutes this year so far. I mean, these guys were rocking each other. Ishihara's left hand landed. We talked about that Ishihara hand. It landed for a split second. If Ishihara wouldn't have went for that submission, he could have knocked his ass out. But that is all 100% attributed to Ishihara having shitty fight IQ. We know it, and I don't always, because I had Kang in that decision, but I did expose myself a little bit on DraftKings to Ishihara.
He almost got 20 points.
Oh, well, he almost got a knockout.
But for the cost that he was for his almost 20 points, he was under 7, I think.
Totally.
So it wasn't
horrible.
worth it.
It wasn't horrible. But I didn't put Kang anywhere, and he ended up getting a submission round number 1. That was probably the guy, because at 9-4, he had to finish in that first round. And he got it straight to the ground. Ishihara was garbage. Probably on your way out of here, Mr. Ishihara. Get on out of here. It's time to go. We know how to beat you.
For a few minutes like that, I'm like, bring me the banger. Bring me because he still has that shot at... It's exciting while it's there. It's exciting while it's happening.
Interesting. I'm surprised. I feel like you're usually the one that's quicker to get him on out of here before
I'm realizing that side of the world, when it's Australia, New Zealand, over in Thailand, when it's over in that side of the world, it's a different quality card, and I have to stop holding it to the standards of UK or American fight cards. And now, even Brazilian is somewhere in the middle of those things.
Totally.
So I have to hold it on different standards. Even the big talent that they pull over there, it's just never quite the same. And I think it's because they sell out so quick. They get twice a year, the whole year for the whole country that they're over in Australia. Of course they sell out so quick.
The truth. It's the truth. And I love the crowd. Speaking of which, they showed up early on, stayed there for the main event, even though, well, it was one of their locals in the main event with Adesanya, but still, that place was packed, and they stayed for even all of the post-commentary of both fighters. I feel like the crowd was educated enough that they realized that Anderson Silva was still... They were watching a Michael Jordan-esque type of a figure for our sport. Because he was one of the longest reigning champions of all time.
I agree. And, well, Australia seems a partially educated, like an educated crowd.
A very educated crowd.
And I think if Bellator is the JV of the... MMA. Western MMA to the UFC, then I think one is what Eastern MMA or UFC is. It's the JV of.
Right.
And so I still think you just have to hold the fight on a different quality. Should they have made it a pay-per-view? No. I'm surprised it wasn't one of those fights that happened at 3 a.m.
True, on Fight Pass?
Yeah.
I mean, ESPN 1+.
Yeah. Yeah.
So... Then we went down to the 25ers, where we had one of the biggest favorites of the night coming on, Kai Kara France, in his hometown, a part of that city kickboxing team, ended up squeaking out a split decision against the love-struck Rulian Paiva. Paiva came in. I didn't know his story until after our show dropped, and unfortunately for this young man, he lost his fiance in a brutal accident caused by a bunch of heathens that were hitting on his girl. Super sad story. He came back 11 months later after that wreck and is now fighting. Everything that I talk shit on Paiva, I take back, because that guy stepped up this fight. And Kai Kara France is an easy fight. And even though I won my bet, Kai Kara France lost that fight.
I 100% agree with you. I was just about to say, as much as Paiva was my underdog in a lot of cards that really brought me up on DraftKings and did well, and I feel like on the show we talked about if this is going to go to decision, then it's going to go with the hometown guy.
That's what happened.
Kai Kara France, but I don't know if you necessarily negate Kai Kara France going forward, or if Paiva is just a mad underdog going forward. No one's going to see him coming. He's going to sneak through, and that guy has all his bases covered. I think he looked pretty tight everywhere.
We didn't see the ground scrambles as much, but Paiva had a great takedown defense all of a sudden. Looked like his boxing was really under him. I mean, Kara France is good enough to set you up and do a lot of really fun and funky shit. And there was even a point in time in there where I think Paiva jumped on a guillotine in the last seconds that looked tight as fuck for a split second. But everything I take from that is Kai Kara still has a little bit of growing to do, and Paiva is someone to look at, as you were saying, moving on in fights, because I agree. He showed up in that fight, and he's one of the few times in a loss everybody looks at him better as a fighter.
Yeah, it is really going to be match dependent on both guys going forward.
I totally agree.
And for me, who usually hates on the 125 division, I forgot they were 125ers. I enjoyed the shit out of that fight.
That was a great fight. Great fight. Then we got on to the 145-pounders where we had Shane Young defeating Austin Arnett via 3-round decision. This was a heavy hitter. Shane Young breaking 100 points on DraftKings. We were playing him here fairly heavy. Kai Kara France shit the bed as far as DraftKings is involved, but Shane Young really came through by landing a lot, having tons of pressure, and dropping Arnett a couple times in there. This was a bit of a sweat though. Austin Arnett looked good in there. Austin Arnett in the third round surprised me. His striking has really come along from the first times we saw him in the UFC from his fights, and Arnett is making leaps and bounds. Even in this fight, he had a great showing. I think both of these guys moving forward are guys to keep watching. I like what I saw from both of them. This was a fun one. We paid for our money's worth on ESPN for this one. What did you take away from this bout?
This one left me feeling a lot like the one before it, where I'm like, oh shit, both guys are going to be really interesting to watch. They really tested each other's mettle. They both seemed well-rounded. They both seemed to negate the other's skill set in a way to make for a really exciting fight. Arnett ended up being a good underdog to pick on DraftKings, even though he lost, but I do think the win was more decisive for Young than it was for Kai Kara France.
I totally agree, and it is true that Arnett...
Even though I agree with you, Arnett looked good everywhere than was expected. He exceeded expectation.
I didn't agree with the scorecards here because the scorecards were 30-27 for Shane Young, and the only scorecard I agree with was 29-28 Shane Young, and I would say that in the last 10 seconds, Young won that fight by knocking down Arnett. Remember that? Arnett got up and started saying...
And he was like, shit!
He knew he lost that fight because they were in hometown.
And it was like last 20 seconds? 20 seconds of the fight?
Seconds.
You're so right. You are so right. Good memory.
But Arnett, in this as well, he was on the winning lineups. Every single winning lineup had Arnett for the first places that I saw. So Arnett was the underdog of the entire night.
He was the DraftKings king guy.
Definitely. Then we go on to the 155-pounders where we had Devontae Smith coming in against Dong Hyo Ma, formerly Dong Young Kim, being knocked out by the 155 Smith. I mean, this was 3 minutes and 53 seconds into the first round. Smith picked apart the Korean fighter who just loops in his punches a little bit. I had a TKO round number 1 because I was thinking the same thing. It was actually a 2-year layoff for Ma since he came back from the military, and he got in a firefight and could not withstand it. Smith, I think he might be a little overrated still because this was a tailor-made fight. Really?
Called Ma's House. I'm just kidding.
That would have been a good one. It's in South Korea.
Just kidding. Just kidding.
I think Smith is going to be a little overly hyped for his next fight because of TKO round number 1. That was a tailor-made fight. Ma likes to bang in there and get reckless. A good striker getting Smith into the later rounds, I think, could be a real issue for him.
I agree. And I'm interested in his whole actual skill set. This was such a weird, fast fight. I had Smith KO round 1 as well. I didn't put him as many places as I wish I would have. I did have him on some cards, and I had him on my winning card, but I really wish I don't know why I wasn't more confident about that decision.
I think it was like 8-7, 8-8. So it was really, really close. As far as being over that 9,000 mark, and you had to pay up. It was weird, especially with that fight falling out. There was changing that had to be done in there. I ended up playing Smith a lot. I ended up cashing out and actually making a profit on DraftKings on my bets, but that's what happens when you're picking 10 out of 11.
I did too. I did good on my DraftKings, and what put me over, I really just broke even. And the only thing that put me over is I played a basketball game.
That's
Otherwise,
inside
I just
picks.
broke
That's
even.
a Lesbo inside picks. Just then you got to go the contrarian and play basketball on the MMA night.
I just did. I had a couple extra bucks, and I was like, let me just play some basketball to cover my thing. The LA Clippers were playing, and for some reason I have really great luck with the LA Clippers.
That is on you. I have nothing outside of the MMA box.
I don't know anything.
I know nothing about it.
Know like players that I'm comfortable that I see and I watch get fire. If you're a draft,
there's too much tape to study, and we got another week right around the corner of more fights. So I can't get into all that stuff. I gotta watch tape, make bits.
Make sure you're liking and subscribing. Hit that like and subscribe.
Now we
like
have
and subscribe. Like and subscribe.
The pay-per-view opening up with Jim the Brute Crute defeating Sam Alvey on short notice, about a week and a half. Sam Alvey flew all the way over to get an early stoppage. I was actually protesting it. I thought Crute had the walk-away home run. Alvey, though, defended correctly, and then when he was taking shots to the side of the head, he was giving a thumbs up and actually defending with his shoulder. None of those shots landed in slow-mo. Sam Alvey came after Mark Goddard, got up in his face. How do you feel about this? How do you feel about that?
I agree with you. I was upset at first and thinking, Crute, walk-off homer. Sam Alvey must have gotten knocked the fuck out because he is not seeing things correctly. And then after rewatching it in slow motion, I'm like, whoa, Sam Alvey was right. Early stoppage. He's totally with it. He did every single thing correctly. And something that he kept touting off over and over again going into the fight is that he felt like his jiu-jitsu was better. He wasn't worried about all that, and I feel like even part of defending on the ground like he was, even though it was just a shielding with the elbow, that's some jiu-jitsu shit. That's some striking jiu-jitsu shit. I don't even know what prepares you for that, but he didn't, nothing landed.
It was interesting. What did
Crute knew it too. If you rewatch the fight, yep. Crute knew it was an early stoppage.
It's the ref. And once the ref wakes his arms,
Sometimes you win
exactly. But it wasn't like Crute didn't. That wasn't out of nowhere. I mean, Crute dropped him with that right. And what we know did happen was Sam Alvey came in with that looping left, hesitated, and kept it at his hip. Watch that right hand. There's nothing there. Sam Alvey's hand, his hand, left hand is at his hip, right hand at his face, left side open. I mean, Crute, anybody's going to land that shot. And if Sam Alvey's doing that in these type of fights, I don't like it going forward for Sam Alvey.
But another thing we know about Sam Alvey flying all the way over the world, taking this
in a week and a half
with his laid, hanging out, taking a fight, blah, blah, blah. Now both fighters, Crute and Sam Alvey, we'll get to see again fill a card. And both can make a killer, the heavier the guy, the more money they tend to make, especially at this level where they're not fighting for championships and stuff. So I think both guys right now, good on them. Lucky them.
So Sam Alvey coming off a 2-fight losing streak, both knockouts.
He has a weird fan base, don't you think?
I agree, and I actually feel like Dana in the post-fight presser was saying, like, that was early. So I feel like everybody else hears that as well. He's going to stay in there. This actually, the first time that Sam Alvey, one of the most tenured fighters in the UFC, has ever been on a pay-per-view.
And that is because I like to think that the UFC is good business. And why would you ever I love fucking Sam Alvey, but I would never put him on a pay-per-view either. He's not on my dream pay-per-view.
Well, he wasn't on the pay-per-view until the main event fell out.
Things went
the only reason he got on the pay-per-view.
Crazy.
But moving forward with Jim Crew, I still like what I'm seeing from the Brew Crew. I don't like his
He wasn't
talking
your
about...
least favorite fight on the pay-per-view.
Agreed. I had Crude everywhere on DraftKings. He really pulled through, though, getting that first round finish, regardless of
Yeah, I was happy about it. Sometimes you win some, sometimes you lose some. Sorry, Sam. Glad that you're not hurt at all and we can see you fight again in another couple weeks because, like, for whatever reason,
True.
anything that happens below the equator doesn't matter on your record. Hashtag Michael Bisping.
Well, you go back in time when you fly back over.
Oh, yeah. So
Yeah,
it doesn't
so
even
you're good.
matter. It's different parallel.
Yeah, exactly. So the fight that I really absolutely despised on the pay-per-view stayed on the pay-per-view, and we got another guy later on, but we had Montana De La Rosa coming in defeating Nadia Kassem via submission, round number 2. We were all over Rosas here. She was about that 8-8-8-9. Still thought she was worth it. She really did pay that off. Scored over 100 points. Kassem came in being a little aggressive, but still being so not talented. Kassem, I don't think is UFC caliber type of a fighter. We saw her get worked in there nonstop. The submission, I didn't think was a full submission. She tapped verbally, and it wasn't with an extension of the arm when they replayed it. So I don't think this should be that big of a win for Rosas because against other fighters, it's going to be a completely different fight. But Kassem's nose. Did you see that thing?
I have to disagree everywhere. Everywhere about the whole thing. I didn't think her nose, yes, did she have a predominant nose? Yeah. Was
nice.
it like, an eggplant? No. No. It wasn't even, it was like, oh, okay, it was normal. It's normal. But I didn't think she was untalented. She did so many defenses right as far as jiu-jitsu was concerned. She just wasn't as good as De La Rosa. And I think for a division like the 125, both women are fine. And both women are in mid-caliber going forward. I think that Kasem can win some fights and her aggression's going to catch a lot of ladies, especially out of that tough house. I think she could go fight Montano today. She might have lost to Montano. I don't even know how it goes. But I think they're both okay going forward. And I just felt like it was a back and forth. And a lot of their 101, I thought their bases were covered as far as grappling defense was concerned. It took a long time for her to be submitted. And De La Rosa's no crazy person.
I don't know who Kassem fights next, but I bet you she loses her next fight.
I have to know who it is. Again, I have to know who it is. But we could
take
write
it.
on it. We could
I
write
can
on it
take it
Kassem, and we could stick it somewhere,
No.
like stick it Kassem. And I would hold it, and you could be like, the Kassem, look at the Kassem money right now. Are you willing to take it? And who knows, I might be swayed. You should write Kassem
That's
on
why
it.
I'm saying it's so early right now that it doesn't matter.
We got bags. Hashtag bags. We should write Kassem. You should. Like, over
on
there.
something. We'll end up putting it down
No,
eventually.
we should. Hold on. I'll do that shit. Hold on.
But is that the bet? Or is it just... What is it then? It's not a bet? Or is it a bet? Oh, we're making money moves over here at LaTB.
It is $100, and it could be a future bet, depending on Kassem's next fight. But you, regardless, are never taking Kassem.
I don't think I'm ever taking Kassem.
So really, it's me betting you that you're never taking Kassem, and I am going to remind you of that. And I'll be like, are you sure?
Hold it onto the fire. Ooh, if you fold it, you can lay it on
Look
the
at
back. Oh, big ballin'. There's more money to be made if you're following LaTB. But Kassem,
Never
Rosas,
Kassem,
never,
never Kassem.
ever.
It should be on your side. It should be by the B.
Oh, true.
Oops.
What? We going.
Look at us throwing it around. Waste not,
big
one
bills,
not.
big bills. But, yeah, I like Rosa. I don't like Kassem. Then we're moving on.
I could think of ladies in the tough house that I'm like, Kassem might be able to beat them. Okay.
Then we go to the 35ers where we had Hickey Hamon coming in against Rani Yaya. This was a 3-round decision. We had our only underdog of the night, the only free bet, the beat being put out there. It ended up coming up short. It was a 3-round decision for Hickey Hamon. He ended up using his wrestling in defense and striking to keep the fight where he wanted. Only went into Yaya's guard at the end of the last 10 seconds of the third round, which is a perfect game plan. It was the takedown defense that won this fight for Hickey Hamon. And moving forward, I still don't like him either. I don't care what you say. I'm not a fan.
I don't really like either guy going forward. And
Agreed.
I can't believe, if you've listened to the show long enough, you should have written us and said, what are you guys doing? You guys hate Hani Yaya.
True. It's a true
Why
thing.
didn't you tell us? What were we doing?
What I needed was an underdog. And it was the only underdog that I was
getting
like...
too close to the top. When
Yeah.
you're like, I'm not going to take any of these other guys.
None of these other guys, and it ended up being a minus 115 by the time the fight came around, but he was the only underdog that I was most comfortable with, and it showed. It showed. I mean, 10 out of 11. You're welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah. If you listen,
we gave you one underdog.
Making money moves.
Definitely playing.
If you know what, a little favor right now, if you stayed with us all the way till here, a little favor for our fans. If you haven't done yourself the favor and gone on and looked up Cardi B featuring Twerk video, you missing out on life. Go do that. You'll know it's them. You'll know you're on the right video because you'll be like, is that two big asses painted like a tiger and a zebra? You're on the right video.
You're on the right track.
So, anyways.
Don't let your girls watch you. Or let them. Tell them. Say, get in here.
Be like, oh my gosh, look at, you have to watch this. A girl told me to watch this.
Truth. Making money moves. On to the 55ers. We had one of the easiest bets of all night. I had Lando Venata everywhere because, as I was saying about Kasem, Marcos Marilio Bustamante Berlante, whatever this guy's name is, because again, he has 20 of them, ended up getting submitted round number 1 against the Venata because what wasn't making sense to me was how he was in the UFC. I was talking a lot of shit on him because he has 0 ground game, striking's okay-ish, but his competition level is also super weak. What I ended up finding out as the week went on was Anderson Silva specifically asked for him to be signed to the UFC, even though he was coming off of a loss. And when this fight fell out, or when the main event fell out, Anderson Silva specifically asked for this guy to be moved up to the co-main event as well. And they were like, sure, champ, whatever you want, champ. They hooked him up.
That's Anderson Silva's son.
It looked like his clone. He said, that's my clone. This is my clone. He's normal. He's normal. This is my clone. So,
it's Venom.
Exactly as the Bean predicted it here, 0 ground game. As soon as Venata went to the ground, dude didn't know what to do. And was it not Dominic Cruz saying the same thing? Like, look it, he's not putting his feet on the hips.
He's not
doing trying. I said that. I was like, this guy doesn't try to get up off the ground once he gets taken down. Against a D1 wrestler,
yep.
Venata's going to eat him alive. I have Venata everywhere. Hope you did as well because it cashed out.
It was worth it. It was worth it. It's normal.
Anything with either of those guys, I'm betting against.
And you know, if this was
nonstop.
an ESPN fight night or whatever, if it just was a TV card, it would have been one for the ages.
One of the year.
Yeah, it would have been perfect. But as a pay-per-view, it fell so short.
Oh,
it fell as short as CM
Kevin
Punk.
Gastelum wearing a freaking belt around in the back and calling himself a champ.
Exactly, that was even better.
That's how freaking short it felt.
Hashtag truth.
Truthness. So Venata didn't really, he should have done that. I'm betting against this Anderson Silva clone nonstop.
And Venata, he's going to be a gatekeeper, and if you can get through Venata, it'll really test your mettle to see if you get through.
Totally. So to the main event we go. Top of 11 cards in Melbourne. We had Israel Adesanya turning into the main event against...
A 3-round main event off a card that just skipped another card. It was very weird. Very weird stuff. It was wild, crazy stuff.
What fan made a really good point about Robert Whittaker? I can't remember the name, and I want to give him a shout out. Saying that even though Whittaker fell out, the truth is that no one gives him credit, even though he defeated GSP in UFC 223, 224, underperformed. Just because of that, we're still just not getting enough hype on it.
Oh, yeah, 223.
It was.
When Robert Whittaker climbed on top of a ladder and beat Brock Lesnar, and
when
no one gives him credit.
He jumped in the Screaming Eagle.
No cred.
Not one bit. Not one bit. Little hernia, and people fall off the Whitaker bandwagon all of a sudden.
No cred. Hashtag no cred.
The skipping. It's the WME era is a different time. It is not Zuffa anymore. This is its own time, and we have to remember that everything's coming out of left field.
It is mixed with wrestling a little more. It is a little like we're just moving on because but we have to. This is the other thing too, people, and all the hardcores. Let me tell you something. The sport that you love was in a time before we had the computer in our hand, and our attention spans were a little longer back then. Now, everyone, one fight and they move completely on. One fight and we're over it.
Totally.
We just move on. It's like, what have you done for me lately? So I just think we have to stop having an old school idea of what UFC is and just change with the times.
Totally.
Change with the times.
Gotta be like water, my friends. Be like water.
Yeah, and we're lucky we didn't slide off a parallel universe since we had Adesanya and Spider meet each other and we didn't break something in the time-space continuum.
Totally the truth. And here for the main event, it did only stay a 3-rounder, and it was a striker's delight, not a shot thrown in there the entire fight. These guys just were trying to set each other up the entire time. The fighter who took over was definitely Israel Adesanya in there, dictating where the fight was, landing the cleaner shots. Both guys got hit in there, but Anderson Silva does what Anderson Silva does, which is have his hands down, eat shots, and try to drag you in, which Adesanya realized. He knew that Anderson Silva was going to do that and never threw anything over leading. He also said he realized that flying knee was coming his way when Anderson threw that in the second round off of that trip that happened for Adesanya, but here, I feel like the play was, I made money on the prop bet of Israel Adesanya, 3-round decision. I was saying, I don't think Anderson gets finished in a 3-rounder here. Ended up going all of them.
You were right. You were dead on about it. I was not giving Anderson Silva enough credit, but I don't know if it was really that. And you said it doesn't matter what way it happened. But in my opinion, Adesanya didn't open up like Adesanya does because he respects Anderson so much. That being said, if that's not the case, the first question I have, and it's so shitty that me with my short attention span, I can't let someone rest on their win. Because looking forward at the Paulo Costa, Yoel Romero fight.
Woo!
Yes, looking forward at that fight. Could you see the Stylebender beating either of those guys now watching what you just watched? Or do you think he's fine? Do you think Anderson Silva beats either of those guys?
I don't think Anderson Silva...
Because I think they're all sitting here.
I don't think Anderson Silva beats either of those guys, but I think Adesanya, Romero, Bohachina... Ooh, give me a menage a trois of pain there. Oh. Those are fun fights. I don't see who wins those, but that's a good thing.
I think Yoel wins those with fucking wrestling.
I think that the tightest fight there is Yoel is Adesanya is the tightest fight out of those three. I think Bohachina takes a step back to either of them.
It made up for it. I was exciting. It had a little more steam behind it for a 3-round fight. I wish it was longer.
Totally.
It delivered. Every shot mattered. It was exciting to watch. Both guys really brought it. I'm excited that we had, and there was so much love and respect in there.
Totally.
It was what it was all about.
I mean, Anderson Silva cried.
It was the hokey pokey, goddammit. It was what it was all about.
Anderson Silva cried in there before the fight, after the fight. He got to talk after in the loss. I mean, it was a good way. A lot of people thought it should have been Anderson Silva's swan song. A lot of people thought he was going to retire there.
And I thought so too, and I was throwing him some shade, but then you were so right. He did everything so right, he beats a lot of guys in there still.
He put him in against, what is it, 205 or 85? 85?
185.
Does he beat Elias Theodora? Right? He beats Elias.
He probably outpoints
He beats Elias Theodora. Get that fight right now, the main event, calling it right here.
Right now, by doing that, you're doing Elias a favor by getting him a money fight. And Elias has done a lot of fights for the UFC. That's the fight that the Spartan should be calling for. If he's listening, that's the fight he calls out in his next fight. You are
It's the
so right
truth.
for him. And he deserves it, and I think that
step
it's
up.
a good...
It's a good style matchup as well.
Yeah.
It's super interesting.
It could make him look beautiful. It could really be
It's a fun one.
stylistically. Yes,
It's a
you're
fun
right.
one. We got another weekend of fights right around the corner. We have Cain Velasquez versus Francis Ngannou on
Oh my
ESPN.
gosh.
Plus, woo, get your hoe ready, because we going to get in it.
Yeah, that's going to be a good one next time. So thanks for trudging through with us. And if you're in a polar vortex, make sure you're staying warm and telling somebody about...
Let's go to the beat.
Thanks for listening to LaTB. For all things Lesbo and the Bean, head over to lesboandthebean.com or follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.